Hello? Does the audio suck? It might suck right now. Oh my god, I might have to delete this. I don't even have my freaking headphones. Hold on. Oh my god. I don't know where my mic is. It's Robert. I'm here. I'm here. Do you see me? Yes, you do. Oh my lord. Hold on. Okay. Oh my goodness. Who broke my freaking mic? I'm blaming Del Taco. I'm blaming Del Taco. Okay, wait, this can be fixed with like super glue. It's not that deep. No, look, I'm sorry. It's just this mic was like 300 freaking dollars. I'm like breathing heavily. I ran up the stairs once. Okay, but you see how it's broken? Oh my god. Del Taco! I'm sorry. I just screamed into the mic. Okay, I really am. I'm messing around just to get people on the stream so we can all have a nice little discussion together. It's all part of the plan. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that actually. It's not really doing anything bad. I have the chat here. Hello. Now I can read it. Okay, great. Hi, hi. It keeps freezing? Like right now? Or like before? Because before I wasn't even streaming, but now I am. Okay, now let's see this. Audio check. Output device phone.
That from here on out, I'm going to be assuming that there is no soul. I'm going to be discussing the issues that we turn to hereafter from the perspective of.
All right, are we all ready? Are we all locked in? I'm so confused. Okay, by the way, I didn't know people were actually counting on the live. Like, I came into the live stream to set it up, and then there were people in the chat being like, yo, I'm waiting for you. And it was like 2 days ago. This is like 3 days late. I didn't know people actually cared. Like, I really didn't. And then I was like, it's fine. The truth is, I think I didn't go live mostly because I don't know where my camera is. This is my laptop camera. Well, I know where my camera is. I don't know where my charger is for the batteries for the camera. And I only have one of the batteries too. And I tried looking for chargers online and they're $50. And I was like, there's no way. I'm gonna pay $30 max for a charger that I lost. There's no way. But I'm gonna be talking about this lecture in reference to my views because I have a big ego. You know, I'm going to be disagreeing with him, agreeing with him, and backing up what I believe. And, I've been battling with this idea in my head recently because we have an abundance of choice among us in this postmodern society with so many different views and so many different cultures and perspectives that are respected. And so, when you're trying to build yourself up, build your identity and your ideas and your beliefs, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize the truth? Or do you prioritize references? Or do you prioritize utility? And there must be more, but those are the three groups I can think of right now. And so the qualities in which you make up yourself is also a very big question. And I don't know how to answer it objectively. You'd want to side with the truth, not your perspectives or not your preferences, sorry, or what was the other one? Truth, preferences, utility. Or utility. I don't know. Because if an idea makes you happy, but it's not true, do you think that's right to have that idea, even though it's not true? It makes you have a better subjective experience. But do you think you'd be living a lie? And I think this is a lot of preference-based questions, but I'm interested on what he has to say about that right now specifically. You're lagging? Oh, okay. But that's what I'm interested in today. It's fine now. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be reacting to this philosophy lecture. So let's play it. I've never seen this either.
At the end of last class, I suggested that from here on out, I'm going to be assuming that there is no soul. I'm going to be discussing the issues that we turn to hereafter from the perspective of the physicalist, the person who says that a person is basically just a fancy body, a body that can do certain special tricks, a body that can function in certain ways that we associate with being a person.
Okay, well that's pretty already drastically different from what I proposed in my last video. I proposed that identity should instead be associated with something like the soul, something at that layer, something a little bit spiritual, esoteric, I guess. And I mean, I'm interested.
A body that can P-function, as we put it. Now, I've given you my reasons for believing there are no souls, basically that the various arguments that might be offered for believing in souls don't seem very compelling upon examination. So
that's very true, honestly. I think the only reason I believe in a soul is a preference. I like to be a romantic person. That's how I want to live my life. And that's, again, coming to my main point, my main concept. How do we choose our ideals, our beliefs? Is it preferences, utility, or truth? And a lot of the time, I choose things, I think, for preference or utility. I think it's just that's completely what makes up a worldview in general. My mom texted me. Okay.
There's no good reason to posit this extra entity. For the most part, then, I'm going to be putting aside soul talk. Periodically, I'll come back and talk about how some issue that we are considering might look from the perspective of somebody who does believe in souls. But as I say, for the most part, I'm going to be assuming there are no souls. For those of you who still do believe in the existence of souls, I suppose you could take a great deal of the discussion that follows as some form of large conditional or subjunctive. You know, if there were no souls, then here's what we'd have to say. So although I'll be largely talking from the perspective of the physicalist, if you haven't become convinced of the truth of physicalism, so be it. We'll at least explore.
I feel like ideas are not about truth a lot of the time, you know. I think being purposefully just a little bit delusional is increasing in popularity. And I don't want to say anti-science and things like that, but more so being a little bit delusional in your confidence, you know, the self-improvement side is like, oh, be delusional that you're going to get everything that you want and start acting like you're living the life that you like so that you can become the person you want to be. It's like those sort of ideas provide a lot of utility, and I kind of like exploring that perspective. And so, if philosophy is founded on the seeking of truth. But what about outside of that? You know, sometimes beliefs are held for preferences, and is there any value in that?
What will we say about death if we've decided that people are basically just bodies? Now, you'll recall that at the start of the semester, I said, in thinking about the question, could I survive my death, there were two basic things we had to get clear on. First, we had to get clear on what am I? What are my parts? And that's why we've spent the last several weeks worrying about the question, am I just a body? Am I a body and an immaterial soul as well? Or perhaps, strictly speaking, just the soul?
I feel like if you're asking those questions, you first have to set the foundation of, even if you do find an answer, is that knowledge valid? Like, you need to touch on consciousness and the truth of knowledge before that. I'm sure they did. I don't know. I'm judging.
Having looked at that question, we're now going to turn to the second basic question. What would it be to survive? What would it be for a thing like that to continue to exist? Now, of course, we're going to ask most particularly, what would it be for a thing like that to survive the death of the body? Could it even make sense for a person to survive the death of his body? You might think the answer to that is no if we are physicalists, but in fact, it's not so clear the answer to that is no. But
because of neurons?
In order to address that particular question, what is it for me to survive the death of my body? Is that even a possibility or not? We first have to get clear about the more general question, what is it for me to survive, period? Take the more familiar humdrum case. Here I am lecturing to you today, Thursday. Somebody's going to be here, no doubt, lecturing to you next week, next Tuesday. The question of survival can be asked about that very simple case. Is the person who's going to be lecturing to you on Tuesday the very same person as the person who is standing in front of you lecturing to you now? Will that person survive the weekend? I certainly expect to survive the weekend, but what is it to survive the weekend? What is it? Well, we might say, look, we've already got the beginnings of an answer. For me to survive till Tuesday, presumably, is for there to be somebody, some person alive lecturing to you on Tuesday. And here's the crucial point, for that person lecturing to you on Tuesday to be the very same person as the person lecturing to you today, on Thursday. You know, if I were to be killed in a plane accident this weekend and there was a guest lecturer for you on Tuesday, there'd be somebody alive lecturing to you, but of course that wouldn't be me. So the question we want to get clear on is, what is it for somebody on Tuesday to be the same person as the person here talking to you on Thursday? And we can ask the question more grandly about larger expanses of time. Suppose there's somebody alive 40-odd years from now, in the year 2050. Could that be me? To ask, have I survived until 2050 is to ask, is that person who's alive in 2050 the very same person as the person who's standing here now lecturing to you?
I assume he's going to get into consciousness and say that that is a qualifier for being alive. That's what I'm guessing. Let me read chat really quick. No, it's fine. Truth, understanding, and contributing to the reduction of unwanted suffering for all beings are not soul consciousness, same difference. I mean, it depends on the definition of both of those things. They're very vague concepts as a word. My opinion, you, the current you, and all of your lived experience is the soul. Once you cease to exist, you die, your soul joins the source, eventually being reborn. Okay, so is your current lived experience the soul, or is it what is experiencing the lived experience your soul? That's my question. Okay. The ship of Theseus? Yes! Bro, I was thinking about that ship. I was gonna mention it. The ship of Theseus is the theoretical question that if you have a ship and it starts breaking down and you start replacing the pieces with it so slowly, and eventually you have replaced every single part of that ship, is it still the same ship, or has it changed identities? And secondly, if you have these pieces, these old pieces, and you create a new ship with them, you restore them back together, which one is the ship of Theseus? And so it's just a question of what really makes something an identity. And I guess if you apply this to humans, this can be applied to like cyborgs. And as we're going to talk about soon, probably consciousness and lived experience, things like that. Is he referring to the Theseus ship thing? Yeah. No, I immediately thought of that as well.
What is it for somebody in the future to be the very same person as this person who's here now today. Now, in thinking about this question, it's important not to misunderstand what we're asking. Some of you may misunderstand what I'm asking. I mean, some of you may want to say, look, the person lecturing to you now has at least a fair bit of his hair. He's got a beard. Let's suppose that the person alive in 2050 is bald and bent over, has no beard. How could they be the same person? One's got hair, one doesn't. One's got a beard, one doesn't. One stands straight, one's crooked. Can't be the same person. That's the mistake that it's important for us to get clear about. So I'm going to spend some time talking about examples that I think we would not find puzzling and work our way back up to the case of personal identity. So first I'm going to say some things about identity across time, or indeed initially identity across space, with some familiar humdrum material objects. So let's start. Suppose you and I are walking along and we see a train. So let me draw the train first.
I'm sorry. I hate the sound of chalk. I'm going to be like shaking a little.
Not very good artist, but
All right.
we start walking. I point to the caboose. Let's make this look more like a caboose, slightly more like a caboose, just so it doesn't look too much like the locomotive. I point to the caboose, and I say, look at that train. And we're walking along, walking along.
But this is the ship of Theseus. He's going to start shifting the parts of the train.
We come to the end of the train, and I point to the locomotive, and I say, wow, look how long that train is. That's the very same train I pointed to 5 minutes ago. We've been walking along it all this time. Now, imagine that you say, you wouldn't say anything as stupid as this, but imagine that you said this. You say, yeah, this isn't the same train as the train we pointed to 5 minutes ago. After all, right now, what you're pointing to is a locomotive. Whereas 5 minutes ago, what you pointed to was a caboose. A caboose isn't the same thing as a locomotive. How could you possibly say it's the same thing? Who could possibly make a mistake like that? You know, the locomotive's got smoke coming out of it, the caboose doesn't, and so forth and so on. There's a lot of differences between the two. How could you make such a silly mistake? Well, of course, what I would then want to say to you is, no, actually, you're the one who's making the mistake. I agree, of course, that a locomotive is not the same thing as a caboose. But I wasn't claiming that it was. Rather, initially, when we started our walk, I pointed to a caboose, but by pointing to the caboose, I picked out a train. I said, look at that train. And what I was referring to wasn't just the caboose, but the whole long, extended through space object, the train, of which the caboose is just a part. And when, at the end of our walk, when I pointed to a locomotive and said, look at that train, by pointing to the locomotive, I was picking out a train, an entire train. This long, extended through space object, the train. And when I said, this train that I'm pointing to now is the very same train as the train I pointed to 5 minutes ago, I'm not saying what is certainly false. I'm not saying the locomotive is the same thing as the caboose. Rather, what I'm saying is the entire extended through space train that I'm pointing out now is the same train as the entire extended through space train that I picked out 5 minutes ago. And that claim, far from being false, is true. Now, as I say, none of us would make that mistake. But it's a tempting mistake if you're not being careful, and that mistake might mislead us if we start thinking about the personal identity case. But let's continue with the train for a bit. Suppose, as we're taking our walk, part of the train isn't visible.
I mean, in my head, I'm also applying this. For example, if you pointed at a leg in the human body and you said, look, this is B, look, this is B. And it's like, well, obviously, intuitively, we understand what the definition of identity is. And I want him to touch on the fact that, like, what if you just define your differences in identity and you have those two different definitions? I want to hear the argument between what definition is the objective truth.
There's a large warehouse that's blocking the view. We're walking along the way, we see a caboose, I say, there's a train. Then for a while we're walking, we don't see anything because all you can see is the warehouse. And then after we get past the warehouse, very long, block-long warehouse, I see a locomotive and I say, hey, look, there's a train. And then I ask you, do you think this is the same train as the train we pointed to before? Now again, it's important not to misunderstand that question, right? That question is not asking, is the locomotive that we're pointing to now the same as the caboose that we pointed to earlier? No, of course not. The locomotive's not the same as the caboose. But that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking rather is, remember earlier when I pointed to the caboose? In doing so, and I started talking about a train, I was picking out some entire extended through space.
You guys want me to put it on like 1.25 or 1.5?
Space.
I'm reading chat again. Well, yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking. The ship of Theseus. I dig his train. Chalk. It's the texture or something. I don't know. I'm not feeling the train. Lol train. Caboose. Okay. I don't need to read every single one. Caboose was also the name. Okay. Why? While the Oh my god, I can't talk. While the you made from the older pieces would probably end up being a clone. Okay, referring to the ship of Theseus. Growing from the moment of its birth into a different being than the one you were before. That's what I mean about the differences of definition. I just want to hear the arguments for the different definitions. You know, and then why you would prefer this argument over the other. If I were to yap on our topic of identity as to provide to the individual, not the collective, one most think of it in my hypothesis of fear response to panic/danger. The response you have is you at your core instinct, your base power, making everything you do in life simply add on to it. You see, but the problem with that is that does that mean you are your base instincts? So does that also mean that you are not those which are related to your frontal lobe. You are not the things that are related to your frontal lobe, your emotional processing, your rational thought. Are you then your instincts, the animalistic parts of you? Because that I think is a dangerous definition if you define it in that way, because then would you value that part of your identity more? The animalistic instinct parts of you. Unless it's not what you're saying and I'm misinterpreting it. Behavioral modification due to awareness of observation. Yes. Yeah, it's philosophy. It's philosophy like 101. I'm also brain rotted and watch videos faster than, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just do 1.525, okay? It's because he's been on this train thing for a while.
Train. Right now, in pointing to a locomotive, I'm picking out not just a locomotive. I mean to be talking about an entire train, some entire extended through space train. And I'm asking not about the locomotive and the caboose, but rather I'm asking about the trains that I pick out by means of the locomotive and caboose. Are they the same train? And the answer is, don't know, can't tell. The building's blocking the view.
Well, that's what I mean. Then this begs the question of, are our senses trustworthy for defining things in our external environment? That's what I think we need to touch on first, the foundations of knowledge, but I don't know.
Suppose we had X-ray.
This is the 10th episode in the series. Maybe he's already defined, all right, let's just trust our senses in our external
vision and could see through the building, then the answer would be, well, look, if what we've got is something like this, then of course we do have one single train. The extended through space train I picked out at the end of our walk is the same as the extended through space train that I picked out at the beginning of our walk. But it might not turn out that way. It might turn out, if I had X-ray vision, that what I'd see is this. Then the answer would be, there's not one train here, but two trains. The extended through space train that I'm picking out when I point to the locomotive turns out to be a different train from the extended through space train I picked out when I pointed to the caboose. If I don't have X-ray vision, I don't know which of these metaphysical hypotheses is the correct one. All right. Easy enough with trains.
Yeah, that's just lack of information. I don't know.
We know how it works with trains.
Okay, we know how it works with trains. Bro!
Let's talk about some.
Okay.
Cars. Used to have a car I bought in 1990. My ability to draw cars is even worse than my ability to draw trains. There's my car in 1990. It was new. It was sparkly. Then I drove it for some years. And got some
That does not look like a car.
Just a smile. By 1996 or 2000, it wasn't looking so good.
That looks like SpongeBob and Patrick's house.
Sparkle had gone, had a couple of dents. That was the car in 2000.
This is Theseus ship.
By 2006, had a lot of dents. 2006 when it finally died. All right. Now, we all understand the claim that the car I had in 2006 was the very same car as the car I had in 1990. Of course, again, got to be careful not to misunderstand what's being said. We all know that in 2006, the car had a lot of scratches and had gotten banged in on one side and pretty sorry looking in terms of the scrapes and the paint job and the rust. Whereas the car in 1990, new and shiny and smooth.
I mean, I think another thing is that our identities are just an expression of our consciousness and of our perceptions. You know, especially with objects. I feel intuitively that the only thing you could really say has an identity is something with consciousness. So that would be things with life. And in the case of objects like this, it's just almost like categorizations based on our perception that we believe have an identity. You know, like, well, this pillow is separate and this Diet Coke because of the way I am perceiving my external environment. So their identity is more so not something we can prove objectively, but something that stems from our perception.
You might say the 2000.
Whereas I believe something with consciousness, you could say it has some objective reality to it, that it has an identity. But external perception is hard.
2006 car stage is obviously not the same thing as the 1990 car stage. That's like thinking that the locomotive is the same thing as the caboose. But when I say it's the same car, I don't mean to be talking about car stages. I mean to be talking about a single thing that was extended through time. There I am, proud owner of my new car in 1990, and I say, this is a car. It's a car that will exist for more than a few minutes. It's a car that will exist for years and years and years, though at the time I didn't realize it was going to last 16 years or longer.
Oh, this car looks like a dead fish.
When I refer to my car, as opposed to what we could dub the car stage or the car slice, when I refer to the car in 1990, I mean to be talking about the entire extended through time object. 2006, when I point to that sad heap and talk about, I've had that car for 16 years. Well, I haven't had that car stage for 16 years. That car stage, or that car slice, if we wanted to talk about it that way, it has only been around for however long, months, years, a year. Hasn't been around for 16 years, but when I talk about that car,
This, I think, is actually, I'm going off topic, but when you apply this to relationship, I feel that especially in modern dating, people's identities are very much tied around their characteristics and not something deeper. And instead of valuing the identity, something close to the soul, like what I'm arguing or proposing, people are instead valuing the characteristics that they believe are identity in dating and relationships, what a person can provide for them, how they affect them in their lives. And because of that, because you are fundamentally seeing somebody as what they can provide for you. And yes, it can be argued that, in every relationship, you need to have some level of that. But because you're only viewing somebody as what they can provide for you, it's very ego driven. And I feel that people don't recognize it as much as they should. But especially in modern dating, we're not valuing the identity that is inevitably going to change over time, like this car, whether it be for better or for worse, whether it's just different and not what you're used to. This identity, these characteristics, these external characteristics, should be constantly fluctuating throughout a person's life. Especially if you start dating somebody when you're like 16, by the time they're 30, they're going to be very drastically different, just like this car. And so it really comes down to your philosophy of relationships and love, but I think generally society has shifted in a way towards valuing an identity that's external and surface level. External in the sense of characteristics and what they provide for you. And I don't know. I thought about that concept while reading Lolita. I don't know. Anyway.
I'm picking not just the current slice or the current stage of the car.
Let me read chat, though. Be the art critic. Where? Oh, yeah. No, he sucks. I can say that. I have a chat. I have a YouTube live where I painted. What if there was an elucidated, I've never heard that word in my life, elucidated path on earth to awaken through the perceptual experience that grant you those realizations? Like drugs? Like LSD? Like, okay, I'm joking around. I don't know. I told you already. Oh, what? Oh, this is the thing. I know a quote that might also come into play on the subject of identity. We are a product of our environment, making us different people with different beliefs. That sounds like something I would say. Is that a quote from me? I don't know. For me, I perceive myself. Okay. Your rebuttal is fascinating. Okay. There was a bit of physics thrown in there with the train thing. Reminded me of the cat in a box stuff. Like Schrodinger's cat, I believe that's how you say it. Oh, Schrodinger. Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. That makes sense. Okay. Haha, it does look like a fish car. No, literally.
But the entire extended through time object. When I say that's the very same car I've had for 16 years, I mean, think of the object extended through time that I'm picking out by pointing to the current slice. That's the very same extended through time object that I picked out 16 years ago by pointing to what was then the current slice. The slices aren't the same. The car is the same. It's the very same car. Well, now let's imagine a somewhat more difficult case. The end of 2006, my engine failed. I sold the car to a dealer, junk dealer. Suppose that in 2010, I see a car in the junk lot, and it looks familiar to me. Say, whoa, that's my car. Is it or isn't it my car? This is sort of like the case with the factory blocking the view. 1990 to 2006, very easy. Saw the car every day in my garage. But here's a 4-year instead of a factory blocking my view, it's the mists of time blocking my view. And I ask, same car or not? Again, by this time, I imagine you don't need to be warned, but let me just warn you a couple more times. I'm not asking, is the car stage, the 2010 car stage, the same car stage as the 2006 car stage? Maybe not. Maybe obviously not. I'm asking rather, in pointing to the 2010 car stage, I mean to be picking out an entire extended through time entity, the car. And I'm asking, is that the very same extended through time entity as the extended through time entity that I used to own? I wonder. And the answer is, don't know. The mists of time are blocking my view. I don't know the answer, but we know what the possibilities are. One possibility is that indeed it's the very same, well, I won't draw it all, 2008 and so forth. It could be the very same car. If we knew what it took to have the various stages of a car add up to the very same car, then that would be one possibility. But there might be a different possibility. Could have been that after I sold it to the junk dealer, he crushed it, turned it into a heap of metal, and that was the end of my car. And the car I'm seeing on the dealer's lot in 2010 might be some other car with its own history.
Oh my god, the chalk! Okay.
What we're wondering
Just have to
about
let it out.
is there a single, oh, here's a piece of jargon. Is there a single space-time worm here, or are there two? When I look at the car in 2010 and say, there's a car, I wonder if it's the same car, I'm asking about this thing that's extended, well, obviously through space, since cars take up some space, and through time. Looks a bit like a worm, so philosophers call them space-time worms. This makes up this car the same space-time worm as the one that made up my car? One worm there or two? And the answer might be, don't know. Need to have more facts. But at least that's what the question is. Now, metaphysically, there's different ways of trying to pose the set of issues that I've begun to talk about. Should we say, as we might say with the train is made up out of the various cars, the locomotive, the caboose, and the intervening cars. So the train, that's the way we normally think about trains, at least the way I normally think about trains. The trains, the physically fundamental things are the caboose, the locomotives, the intervening trains. If they're glued together in the right way, they make up a train. What's the right kind of metaphysical glue for trains? Well, it's being connected with those little locks.
Connecting this to relationship and to personality, again, this also begs the question, if somebody, if their identity is the sum of their parts, does that also include personality traits? If me, 10 years from now, am suddenly goth, very alternative, very different beliefs, very different ideas, very different personality, I want to be homeless and live under a bridge, am I still the same me? Um, and I think in relationships, that development of identity and characteristics, which I believe are a layer above identity, so not really connected to identity. When you enter a relationship with somebody, it's a very conscious choice whether you're choosing to like or love their identity themselves, no matter what stage, or whether you're going to be choosing to love the current personality. And I do think, I mean, there's arguments for both preferences, but I don't think people ever consider that or choose one. Because the reason I was confronted with this concept while reading a horrific book, Lolita, which is about a pedophile, if you don't know, is because he brought up the fact that he will love Lolita forever. But what he really meant is that he's going to love Lolita as the version she was when she was 11 years old. So he did not love the identity, or what I'm proposing the identity is. He loved the characteristics. He loved the personality, the look. And that image, it is what he's caring about. And I feel that many of us, especially in modern dating, I don't know if I would say us, but many people now are instead arguing you should actually care more about the characteristics, the things that people offer you, because you should be treated better. It's it's less romantic in my view, and I do equate it to something horrific like Lolita, because it is the same underlying conceptual concept of choosing to love characteristics rather than an identity. And it can be done with some things, like with a car. I don't like my car's identity. I like my car's characteristics because I don't love it, you know? I like to believe, at least, this is personal to me, that loving is more so to do with identity, but liking is more so to do with characteristics. I'm gonna read chat. Dead fish. YouTube is not responding. Yes, it is. What if you had every identity because you had no identity? You know, but that's what I mean, because I feel like there you're using the traditional definition of characteristics. And in that sense, I do think we have no identity. I don't think that characteristics are identity. That's why in my last video I was trying to explain that you can choose your characteristics so fluidly as long as you understand why people hold foundational characteristics. Because there's an underlying philosophy for absolutely any characteristic. And so I believe it is a conscious choice once you understand the philosophical underlyings of each choice, of each perspective, of what philosophy and characteristics you choose to hold. I believe this is a product of our postmodern society. There's so many lives we've been presented with that we could live. You could be a Buddhist monk. You could be a billionaire. I was presented earlier today with this book that is called How to Live, or How to Live Life, or whatever. And it just presents all of these philosophical arguments for how you should live one life versus the other, be homeless like Diogenes and a philosopher or whatever, Buddhist monk, billionaire. And I believe now from that perspective, that there's so many choices, so many philosophical underlyings, we now have the responsibility in this society to choose which one we want. And that choice is not our identity, but just our characteristics. The identity has to be something underlying that. It has to be natural inclinations. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, it is the high-pitched whine of the chalk. No, I don't know what it is. It's like the scratching, but anyway. As people change over time through experiences, memories, and physical changes, are they still the same person? I believe yes, because I define identity personally as the natural inclinations that you are born with. I don't know if it's DNA, I don't know if it's something spiritual, but that's what I define identity is. It's something closer to the soul. And I do choose to believe in the soul because it makes me a more romantic person, and I love being a romantic person. It truly fulfills me and energizes me. Um, and so in that way, I am choosing to believe something for the preference and utility. Okay. But then the weird thing is, from our observance, we still perceive ourselves the same. That's true. That's exactly true. I do think that no matter how much somebody changes throughout their life, they are still the same identity as this guy is posing in the video. Like even if you changed the engine, it's still the same car. Hello? Yes, your experiences simply change your chosen path in life. Yeah. What I think is ideal is not for your experiences to change your chosen path, but more so your rational thinking and understanding your influences. Okay, the state of awareness and the states of expression are not the same. The expression is fleeting and awareness is permanent. Okay. You could be a billionaire Buddhist monk, yes.
That may or may not be the right way to think about what I've been calling car stages or car slices. On some metaphysical views, you might say, just exactly like with the train, the car stages are the metaphysically fundamental things, and a car, something extended through time, is glued together like a sandwich from the car stages. And then we might worry about what's the relevant metaphysical glue for cars. On other metaphysical views, no, what's really prior is the car itself, and talking about car stages is a certain convenience, a kind of way of chopping up the fundamental thing, the car. So to use an analogy that I think David Kaplan...
I don't think it's chopping up. He's thinking about it completely wrong. I think about it in layers. There's the car, the whatever underlying identity capital I, and then there's the characteristics of the car. There's the engine, there's whatever, the exterior, the interior. I think it is close to Plato's theory of forms. Almost like there is an ideal form of something, of this specific car's identity in um in a metaphysical universe that is only in our minds, that doesn't actually exist in the natural world. That's where I think identity would be, somewhere in Plato's uh, world of forms.
philosopher at UCLA offers. It's as though you have to think of it more like a bologna or a salami that you can slice. If for certain purposes you can talk about slices.
Yeah, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think we need to not think of it in slices and instead think of it in layers.
But the fundamental thing is the salami. All right. In thinking about cars, should we say that the fundamental thing is the car stages and they get put together like a sandwich to make cars? Or should we think that the fundamental thing is the car extended through time and they can be sliced up to make car stages? For our purposes, I think we won't have to go there. It doesn't really matter as long as we're comfortable talking about entire space-time worms, the cars, and the slices or the stages. We don't have to ask which is metaphysically prior. I should also mention that there are other metaphysical views about what goes on when an object exists over time. I've been here helping myself to the suggestion that we should think about extension over time analogously to the way we think about extension over space. That's why I started with a spatial example, the train, and moved to the temporal example, the car.
I do believe that identity has to be fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional. It has to be something that we cannot accurately describe in our dimension because of this component of time. I think that identity is every single characteristic over time, every single iteration of the car all together, something underlying that is there for an infinite amount of time. It's like, it's very conceptual. And the thing is, who cares? You know, I think what's really important about philosophy is the practical applications of this. If you have this foundational belief, what does this mean for how you view society, for how you view people, especially, which is why I'm trying to relate it to relationships.
And there are those philosophers who think that's exactly the right way to think about it, and those philosophers who think, no, that's misleading. When an object is extended over time, really the entire object's right there at every single moment. These are interesting and difficult questions, but again, I think for our purposes, we don't have to go there. So I will help myself to this language of space, time, worms, objects that extend not only over space but also over time, and distinguish the entire worm from the various slices or stages that either make up the worm or that we could slice the worm into. The point that I've been emphasizing is, well, first point, of course, has been don't confuse the stages with the entire space-time worm. The stages can differ without the entire space-time worm being a different worm. Second question, I've hinted.
I think to apply this in a practical way, what he's essentially saying is don't confuse the characteristics at one point in time as the entire identity. So going back to our Lolita example, this man, Humbert Humbert, in the book, was choosing Lolita's identity to be when she was 11, at this specific point in time, as he perceived her, instead of the larger underlying identity that must be fourth dimensional in some way, that accounts for every single stage, every single moment in time.
That we're about to turn to, not literally turn to in a moment, but shortly we'll turn to, is what's the relevant glue? What makes two stages of the very same thing? In the case of trains, as I say, it's fairly obvious. What is it in the case of cars? What makes the 1990 car stage a stage in the very same car, the extended through space and time worm car, as the 2006 stage? What's the metaphysical glue that glues these stages together? And the answer, not that there aren't puzzles about it, but the answer is roughly, it's the very same car if it's the very same hunk of metal and plastic and wires.
I don't know why it has to be grounded in something physical, in something in the rational world. I think it should be something similar to Plato's forms.
There was the car. Car's just some metal and plastic, rubber. And that very same hunk continued into 2000 and continued into 2006. The glue, the key to identity across time for cars is being the same hunk of stuff. Now,
so then what happens if you change the engine?
That doesn't mean it's got to be the same atom for atom.
Oh, okay.
We know that's not true. Look, think about my steering wheel. Every time I grabbed the steering wheel to drive, I wore away thousands of atoms. You can lose some atoms and still be the very same steering wheel. Every now and then, I'd replace the tires on my car. But for all that, it was the same hunk of stuff. Now, this raises sort of an interesting issue. How many changes of the constituent parts can you have and still be the same hunk of stuff? If this was a class in which we were going to worry about the general problem of identity across time, this would be a problem we'd have to directly face. But since we are only looking at enough of the problem of identity to get to the question that we really want to think about, the nature of personal identity across time, I'm not going to pursue that. I just want to flag the thought that you can be the very same hunk of stuff even if some of the constituent atoms have changed along the way. And even bigger parts. You can replace the headlights and still be the same hunk of stuff. Anyway, that's what's gone on in the car case. Same hunk of stuff, 1900 to 2006. And when I see the car on the junk dealer's yard in 2010 and ask, is that my car or not? The answer lies in, if only we could know, is it the same hunk of stuff or not? That's what the key, the metaphysical glue is, being the same hunk of stuff. All right, let's turn now to the case we really wonder about.
Okay,
Personal identity. Here's somebody lecturing to you in 2007. Shelley Kagan. We imagine there's somebody in 2050. And we ask, is that Shelley Kagan? We'll call him Mr. X. We ask, is that the same person or not? Now again, at this point, you're not going to be tempted by the mistake, right? I'm not asking, is this person stage, Mr. X, the same person stage as SK 2007? Obviously not. SK 2007 still got his hair, has a beard, stands up more or less straight. Mr. X is bald, doesn't have a beard. I suppose I should have drawn him bent. Can I do that? A little cane, right?
Oh my lord.
I'm not asking, is the person stage, Mr. X, the same as the person stage, SK 2007? Sounds like a computer or something. Get the SK 2000. I'm not asking that. I'm saying, look, when you look at the current stage, the current person slice, and think about the entire extended through time entity, the person that makes up Shelley Kagan, or that is Shelley Kagan, is that the very same person as the extended through time person that you've got in mind when you point to the Mr. X 2050?
I mean, I feel like we just have to get into consciousness when it comes to people. Like, literally, I think, therefore I am.
The stages are obviously different, but by looking at the stages, we pick out a space-time worm that makes up a person. And we're asking, is that the very same space-time worm as the one we picked out previously, or a different space-time worm than the one we picked out previously? And the answer, presumably, is going to be, well, it depends on getting clear on whether the stages are glued together in the right metaphysical way.
I'm gonna read the comments. Okay. Seriously learned that the state of no identity accesses omniscient means of waking identities up aware. What? I like yoga? Nuh-uh. I like Pilates. Onions have layers. Onions have layers. You're trying to suss out karma. What? Bro, what? When we love someone because of some aspect of their personality traits and characteristics, a fundamental trait of their personal makeup that complements aspects of our own person. You see, that's a philosophy, that's a view, that's a perspective. You can love somebody for those reasons. Or you want to be very romantic and say that you love somebody because of their soul, because of their underlying identity, this fourth, fifth dimensional being that underlies somebody, you know? At least from my own personal experience. Something self versus identity. Self like space, separately itself and yet present at everything it holds. Did you say self versus identity because I said think therefore I am? That would make sense. I want you to find your okay. Find a path that wakes the self. mean, perhaps. And you can have everything. Seriously, B, I'm kind of screaming to you. You have no idea who I am, but I'm handing it to you. Remember that. That's how I read it in my head. Oh my goodness, you really want me to freaking read this guy? Yoga Sutras. Okay.
And so what we'd like to know is, well, what does it take for two-person stages to make up or be part of the very same extended through time person? What's the metaphysical glue that underlies being a single extended through time person? What's the key to personal identity? If we could get clear about the answer to that metaphysical question, the key to personal identity, we'd at least know what we needed to find out to answer the question, is this one person or two? Are the pieces glued together in the right way? Different question. The question that we're ultimately hoping to get an answer to. Could I survive my death? Well, look, think again about the question we started with. Could I survive the weekend? To survive the weekend, there's got to be somebody who's alive, some person on Tuesday, and that person's got to be the very same person as the person you're looking at now, you're thinking about now. Or to put it in terms of stages, that person's got to be, that stage, that slice, has to be part of the very same extended through time, space-time worm as this stage is.
Yeah.
They've got to be glued together in the right way. We can't tell whether that's true until we know what the glue is, but at least we anticipate that there will be somebody here on Tuesday who is glued together in that way, the right way, whatever that turns out to be. The stages will be glued together in the right way. Suppose I ask then, will I survive my death? All right, so I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to assume that I make it to 2040. 2040 won't even be 90 yet. That's not too wildly optimistic. It's optimistic, but not wildly optimistic. So here's the SK 2040. We know that.
This is 2007. Bro, I'm not gonna lie. I'm as old as this lecture.
There's an extended through space and time, space-time worm, a person. Then let's suppose, sadly, 2041, my body dies, and I ask, could I survive my death? That is to say, the death of my body. Well, we want to know, after 2041, let's say 2045, is there somebody who's a person? Call him Mr. X. Could it be the case that there'd be a person in 2045 after the death of my body in 2041? Could it be the case that there's a person who's part of the very same space-time worm that you're thinking about right now? Could that be or not? We can't answer that question until we are clearer about what does it take to have identity across time. What's the key to personal identity? What's the metaphysical glue? Once we get clear about what the relevant metaphysical glue is, we'll be in a position to start asking, could this happen or not?
Let's define it. Let's define it.
All right, that's the question I want to turn to then. What are the possible positions on this question? What's the key to personal identity? What's it to be the very same person? As we might put it somewhat misleadingly, what is it for two, quote-unquote, people to really be the same single extended through time person? Suppose we believed in souls. Then here would be a natural proposal. The metaphysical key to personal identity is having the very same soul. So suppose I was a dualist. I'd say, look, you're looking at a body, but connected in this intimate way with this body is a particular soul, the soul of Shelley Kagan. What makes it true that the person lecturing to you next Tuesday is Shelley Kagan, the very same person. What makes that true is that it's the very same soul. As long as
I mean, that's honestly what I'm proposing. Pretty similar.
this soul is here again on Tuesday, it'll be Shelley Kagan. If it's a different soul, it's not Shelley Kagan. That's the natural thing to suggest if we believe in the soul view. The key to personal identity, not the only thing a soul theorist can say, but the natural thing for a soul theorist to say, the key to personal identity is having the very same soul. Same soul, same person. Different soul, different person. Imagine that God or a demon or what have you, for whatever perverse reason, severs the ordinary connection between my body and my soul, and then reconnects the wires, as it were, so that there's a different soul animating and controlling this body on Tuesday. For whatever perverse reasons, maybe to make some sort of philosophical point, that person decides to come in anyway on Tuesday and lecture to you about philosophy. According to the view that we're taking, which we'll now call the soul view, according to the soul view, it won't be me lecturing to you on Tuesday. Why not? Because we've just stipulated it's not the same soul. It's a different soul. The key to personal identity, according to the soul theory of personal identity, the key to personal identity is having the same soul. When I ask myself, will I survive the weekend? What I'm asking is, will my soul still be around come Tuesday? As long as my soul still exists and is functioning, it's still me. I'm still around. In fact, peeking ahead, of course, and this is why we are often drawn to soul views, even if my body dies, as long as my soul continues to exist, I continue to exist. The key to personal identity, according to the soul view, is having the same soul. As long as my soul continues to exist, it's still me, whether or not my body's still alive. And it's precisely for this reason that at least the belief in the soul, combined with the soul theory of personal identity, holds out the possibility of surviving my death. We may not know that the soul will continue to exist after the destruction of the body, but at least it seems like a possibility. Plato, of course, as we know, tried to argue that we could know, that there were good grounds for believing the soul would continue to exist. I've said I don't find those grounds so convincing. But even if we didn't think we could show that the soul would continue to exist, at least it could. It would make perfect sense to think about it continuing to exist. And so I could survive the death of my body.
Turn on the lights. What do we think about what he's saying? Any thoughts on beauty? I do. I have a lot of thoughts on beauty, but they're not polished at all. I don't know if I should even say them. How be Reddit lol. Um, but if we take this, but if we take this cue he poses literary, I can't see. But if we take this, okay. Well, work's done here. I appreciate that you heard me yelling. Okay. The dualistic approach is really dumpening down his proposition a lot. In Bio 101, we learn that every day we are becoming a different person compared to whom we were a day ago. I mean, yes?
In contrast, prospects don't look so promising for surviving my death of my body.
The thing is, I don't even think the soul has to be something that survives after you die. It just has to be very much existing in the world of Plato's forms. That should have been the first lecture we talked about, really, because that's a metaphorical underlying. This world of forms is not true in the rational sense. It's like the world of mathematical truths that we can look at and identify as objectively true because they exist within the mind. They exist within the metaphorical. So it's within this world that I believe souls exist, but that does not mean it's the same definition as what we traditionally consider souls to be. Identity, I believe, exists in this world, but is not necessarily a soul like this. Something close to a soul, but not necessarily that it exists after you die. I don't really believe in that soul. I have no reason to believe in that soul rationally. Like there's no proof to say that a soul exists, but I think there is proof to say that identity in some sense can live in this world of Plato's forms.
Believe in dualism, if we're physicalists. If a person is just a P-functioning body, how could it be that after the death of his body, he's still around? Well, we'll say more about that a little bit later. Come back to the soul view. It's me as long as it's the same soul. It's not me if it's a different soul. Now consider the following possibility. Suppose that over the weekend, at 3 a.m. Saturday night, Sunday morning, while I'm asleep, God replaces my soul with a different soul, hooks it up to the body, gives that.
That's what I mean, that like the solution to identity cannot be the soul, because then there's propositions like that. Whereas in Plato's metaphysical world, it's more so a concept that doesn't really apply these things with God and switching souls and bodies. Like that's not really possible because the identity is a form of an ideal. It's like a mathematical truth that is there, it exists.
That soul, that replacement soul, all of my memories, all of my beliefs, all of my desires, all of my intentions. Somebody wakes up.
Wait, did he connect?
All of my gives that soul, that replacement soul, all of my memories, all of my beliefs, all of my desires.
So here he's connecting his soul with his beliefs, his desires, his memories. Why? That just came out of nowhere. That's very, very important. You can't just do that. You can't just connect the soul to all of those things. Because arguably, your brain, your mind, which is part of your body, holds your memories. So if the soul is deeper than the body, it also holds your beliefs. It also holds your desires, probably because of DNA. So if the soul is something deeper, something spiritual in his sense, then it can't hold those things because those are all biological. You can't just do that, bro. There's no way. There's no way he's saying that.
My intentions. Somebody wakes up Sunday morning, says, hey, it's a great day, wonderful to be alive, I'm Shelley Kagan, got to get to work, whatever it is. Says, I'm Shelley Kagan, but he's not. According to the soul view, he's not. Because according to the soul theory of personal identity, to be me, that person's got to have my soul. And in this story, he doesn't have my soul. My soul got destroyed, let's suppose, 3 a.m. Sunday morning. A new soul got created. It's not me. There's a person there, all right. It's a person that doesn't have a...
Let's test this practically, guys. We got to start the rituals.
Very long history. Maybe he'll go on to have a long history. But it's a different extended through space and time person than the one you're thinking about right now. Because according to the soul view, to be me, it's got to have the same soul, and we just stipulated not the same soul. Think about what that means. If God were to replace my soul Saturday night, I die. And the thing that wakes up Sunday isn't me. Of course, he'd think he was me. He'd think to himself, I'm the very same person who was lecturing about philosophy last week. But he'd be wrong. Isn't the same person because it's not the same soul.
Okay, so then that presents the question, how do you know if 1 second to the next you have the same soul? Because biologically, okay, I don't think he was saying, by the way, that the soul is connected to memories, because here in his hypothetical, he's explaining something that is completely different, that the person believes they are the same person. Okay, yeah, that's true. He's making a good point, because
be wrong, and notice this, there'd be no way at all he could tell. He can check his beliefs, he can check his desires, he can check his memories, but that's not the key to personal identity according to the soul view. The key to personal identity according to the soul view is having the very same soul. Can't check that. You can't see the soul to see if it's the same one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if this would have happened to him, he wouldn't be Shelley Kagan, the person who'd been lecturing last week, but there'd be no way at all he could know that. And now, the question you would need to ask yourself is, how do you know this didn't happen to you last night?
Yeah, exactly.
You woke up this morning thinking, I'm the very same person, Joe, Linda, Sally, whatever it is, the very same person who was in class yesterday. How do you know? How could you possibly know? If God replaced your soul with a new one, destroyed the old one, gave the new one all the old memories, beliefs, desires, goals, and so forth, that person who was in class last week, yesterday, died. The person who's here now hasn't been around 10 years, 20 years, what have you. You were born a few hours ago, and there'd be no way at all that you could possibly tell. How do
That is so interesting. I could write a whole freaking fiction novel universe about that.
you know, not only that it didn't happen to you last night, how do you know something like this doesn't happen every single night? Every hour, on the hour, every minute, every second, God whips out the old soul, destroys it, puts in a new one with, maybe souls only last for a minute and a half. If that was happening, then people don't last very long. Bodies may last 20 years, 50 years, 80 years, 100 years, but people would only last an hour, or if it's every minute substitution, a minute. And you'd never possibly be able to tell. Now,
You can tell when you step into a room and forgot what you were doing there.
these worries were raised by John Locke, great British philosopher, and he thought,
How have I not freaking heard of this?
this is too big a pill to swallow. This is too big a bullet to bite. We can't take seriously the suggestion that there's no way at all to tell whether it was still me from the one day to the next, from 1 hour to the next, from 1 minute to the next. Just not plausible. It's not that there's anything incoherent about this view, that there's anything logically contradictory about this view. You just have to ask yourself, could this really be what personal identity is all about? That there'd be no way at all to tell whether I've survived from 1 minute to the next, from 1 hour to the next? Locke thought no. You couldn't possibly take this view seriously if you thought about what it meant.
That's why we can't have souls. We need a substitution. Something like Plato's forms. That's my proposition.
Notice, this is not an argument that souls don't exist. If you find this argument convincing, what it's an argument for is the claim that even if souls do exist, they may not be the key to personal identity. And so what we have to ask ourselves is, what's the alternative? What better suggestion is there for what we could point to as the metaphysical glue, the key to personal identity? And that's the question that we'll take up next time.
Do I need to watch another hour? How long has it been? Let's see. Identity. When is there proof? That's so real. The Unk of Yale? Bro, he's probably old right now. Oh my gosh. Where is he now? I need one of those videos. Identity is comprised of more elements than just soul. I mean, yeah, like, apparently John Locke already pointed out the unverifiability of the soul hundreds of years ago. Um, Agreed with you 100%. Same here. I'm a materialist after all. But to be frank, identity, according to Freud, is a much more complex idea. Ob- Obviously, I know who Freud is, but when it comes to him and identity, I've never heard anything, to be honest. Purusha is a matter of self and consciousness. Soul is a matter of form, experience. That's why every culture has begun from animism. But I mean, just because every culture has begun from animism, that doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't point to any truth. Yeah, the soul doesn't contain those things. Souls are uniform, we all get one. If he replaces my soul, maybe if he backed up all my data into the cloud, I'd be the same. Unless you're God. No, but that's what he's saying, that all of your data is in the cloud. And then the soul is just replaced in body, and like we switch every minute, or, it's unverifiable. I don't even know what soul is, though. It's a core something. Yeah. I mean, the traditional definition for a soul is something that we keep after we die, something that goes to heaven or hell. So in here, John Locke is like, actually, that's kind of not possible to prove. Like, I guess maybe it's true. If you're religious, then you are going to believe in it, but it's unverifiable because we have no idea. Maybe we're dying every minute because God likes to change our souls around. Who is the one that wears Who is the one that is aware that it is the soul, or that, okay, I can't read that. Who is the one that aware it is this soul or that soul? Souls are like data sets and programs to the one who is witnessing awareness. When you say souls are like data sets, are you talking about memories and beliefs and inclinations like he was? I gotta watch another hour. He left me on a friggin' part two.
Last time we turned to the question of what the metaphysical key to.
Wait, I'll be right back. Millie, come entertain the audience. Millie. I forgot I can just. Okay. Just stay there, Millie. BRB. you actually stayed there the whole time. Oh, you're so cute. You're so cute. Look at you. Oh my goodness. Bye. Wow. I can't believe she actually kept the audience entertained. Yeah, I sit here. Headphones here. What have we been saying? Wait, this is the wrong tab. I don't know where I am. It's over. Well, it makes no sense to change souls around. Don't you dare question God. It's just a hypothetical. I mean, maybe. It's more so pointing to the fact that we cannot verify whether we had the same soul that we did 5 minutes ago. And so it's calling to the fact that souls must not, or yes, souls must not be the ideal predictor for identity. Because there's an aspect of unverifiability to it. It's course up and Calico. Yes. Even though I don't know exactly what a soul is, I see it when I look at I see it when I look straight at y'all. Sometimes I don't know how to read. But still in that mindset, we are not the same hypothetically in exercise. We are reincarnated abstract thinking. Oh, it's because I missed a message. That's why it didn't make sense. Even if spiritual, we might believe that the metaphysical soul is reborn or recycled back into the world again. But still in that mindset, we are not the same hypothetically in exercise. Stop saying 6-7. I'm gonna ban you. Oh my god. Enough.
Personal identity might be. What makes it be the case that one person, some person that exists in the future, is the same person as me? The first approach to this that we considered was the soul theory of personal identity, the key to being the same.
I wasn't listening.
Last time we turned to the question of what the metaphysical key to personal identity might be. What makes it be the case that one person, some person that exists in the future, is the same person as me? The first approach to this that we considered was the soul theory of personal identity. The key to being the same person is having the same soul. Same soul, same person, different soul, different person. And the difficulty with that approach, even if we bracket the question whether or not there are souls, the difficulty with that approach was that it seems as though the soul could constantly be changing while the personality, as we might call it, stays the same. I have the same beliefs, memories, desires, goals, preferences, and so forth, but the soul underneath it all keeps being swapped every 5 minutes. If the soul theory of personal identity were right, that would not be me. I would be, every 5 minutes that person would die. We'd have a new person despite having the same personality. Most of us find that a rather difficult thing to believe, that the person could be constantly changing in this way without having any way at all to tell. And if we're not willing to accept that implication, it seems as though we need to reject the soul theory of personal identity. Now, I use this cumbersome phrase because, of course, I'm not here talking about rejecting the existence of souls. What I'm considering right now is the question whether sameness of soul is the key to being the same person. And this is there's a logical distinction here that's worth drawing. Even if you believe in souls, you don't have to say that having the very same soul is the key to being the very same person.
Yeah.
And trivially, of course, if you don't believe in souls, if you don't believe that souls exist, then you certainly can't appeal to the existence of souls, the continuity of soul, the sameness of soul as the key to personal identity. But we might then ask, well, what's the alternative? Now, the natural alternative is to say the key to being the same person is not the sameness of the soul, whether or not it exists, but rather having the very same body. And again, although I'm not going to go on and on about this point, it's worth noticing that even if you do believe that souls exist, nothing stops you from accepting the body theory of personal identity. Nothing rules out the possibility that
And then he's going to talk about cyborgs.
That having the very same body is the key to being the very same person over time. Even if you believe in souls, you can accept the body theory, and it's certainly...
But we're recycled. Isn't it so that like all of our cells are recycled every 10 years or something like that? So then in that case,
it looks as though if you don't believe in souls, you have to accept the body theory of personal identity.
No, you don't have to. This guy's better touch on that.
Now, as it turns out, that appearance is deceptive. There are still other alternatives open to the physicalist, but let's come to that other alternative later. Let's take a few minutes and consider the nature of the body theory of personal identity. Oh, on this theory, of course, the secret to being the same person is having the same body. So when we ask, well, you remember last lecture I was talking about how there'd be somebody here lecturing to you philosophy on Tuesday. Well, here somebody is. Is that the same person? Is the person who's lecturing to you now the same person as the person who was lecturing to you before? According to the body theory, the answer turns on the question, well, is this the same body as the lump of flesh and bone that was here last week? If it is, and by the by it is, if it is, then that's the same person. So am I the person who was lecturing to you last week? Yes, I am, because it's the very same body. That's what the body theory says. And unlike souls, where it's all rather mysterious how you could tell whether soul swapping was taking place or not, it's not all that mysterious how we check out to see whether the same body's been around. Even though you didn't do it, you could have snuck into my house, watched my body go to sleep, get up in the morning, followed the body around over the course of the day, see it go to sleep again. You could have tracked that body through space and time and said, hey, look, very same body. In the same way that we are able to track, in principle, cars, our earlier example, and talk about, yeah, it's the same hunk of metal and wire and rubber and plastic. This is the same hunk, same body. All right, same body, same person. That's the body theory of personal identity. Now, if we accept the body theory, then, of course, if we turn to the question, could I survive my death? Could I survive the death of my body? At first glance, it looks as though the answer is going to have to be, well, of course not, because when my body dies, then eventually the body begins to decay. It decomposes, turns into molecules which get absorbed into the soil or what have you. This may take years or decades or even centuries, but my body no longer exists after death of my body. And so how could I survive the death of my body? If for me to survive the death of my body, there's got to be somebody who's me, and it being me requires it being the same body. My body would have to still be around, but it's not. That's what it looks like at first glance, but at second glance we see that there's at least a logical possibility of surviving the death of my body. All it takes is for my body to be put back together. Bodily resurrection. Now, I'm not going to here pursue the question of do we believe bodily resurrection occurs or will occur. I'll note that there have been religious traditions that have taught and believed in this possibility. In particular, it's probably worth mentioning that early Christians believed in something like the body theory of personal identity and believed in bodily resurrection that would happen on Judgment Day. We can certainly understand the possibility that God would perform a miracle, put the molecules back together, to turn the body back on, same body, same person, come Judgment Day.
Is that in the Bible? Can we verify that? Is that true? Or did religious leaders make that up? Is that actually in Revelations? Resurrected. I think it is true. I don't want to look at the AI. I think so. I think what he's saying is your soul and your body get reunited.
The possibility. So it's at least worth emphasizing the fact that even if we don't believe in souls, we could still believe in the possibility of surviving one's death, the death of one's body, if we're willing to believe in bodily resurrection.
Is that why they believe in burials? But can't Jesus just like put the molecules back together if you're what's it called? I don't know why I said Jesus. I should have said God.
Well, that's how it looks. Now let's take a harder look. Talking that way assumes that when you put the body back together, when God puts the body back together on Judgment Day, that that's still my body. Is that right? I'm inclined to think it is right. If God gathers up all the various molecules that had composed my body, reassembles them in the right order, putting this calcium molecule next to that hydrogen molecule and so forth and so on, reassembles them in the right way. Obviously, if what he makes out of my body's molecules is a Cadillac, then that's not my body. But if he puts them together in the right way, that seems like it should be my body. So here's an analogy to give you a sense of what's going on. Suppose I take my watch to the jeweler because it stopped working. And in order to clean it and fix it, repair it, what the jeweler does is he takes it apart, and he takes the rust off of the gears, if there are still gears in watches. Imagine it's an old stopwatch. And he cleans all the pieces and buffs them and polishes them, and then reassembles the whole thing. And a week later, I come back and ask, where's my watch? And he hands it to me. Well, all well and good. Now imagine some metaphysician saying, wait a minute, Buster, not so quick. That's not my watch. Admittedly, it's composed of all the very same pieces that made up my watch. Admittedly, all these pieces are in the very same order as my watch, but still, that's not my watch. On the contrary, it seems to me the right thing to say about that example is, no, that is my watch. My watch was disassembled for a period of time. Perhaps we should say my watch didn't exist during that period of time, but it got put back together. Now that's my watch. If that's the right thing to say about the watch, and it does seem to me to be the right thing to say about the watch, then God could presumably do the same thing on Judgment Day. He could take our molecules, which have been scattered, put them back together, and say, that's your body. And if the body theory of personal identity is right, well, that would be me. So it seems to me. But there's a different example that we have to worry about as well, which argues against this proposal, that the body could decompose and then be recomposed. This is an example that's due to Peter von Inwagen. He's a contemporary metaphysician, teaches at Notre Dame. Suppose that my son builds a tower out of wooden blocks. We have a set of wooden blocks at home. Suppose that he builds some elaborate tower. It's very impressive. And he says, please show it to Mom when she comes home, and he goes to bed. And very good, I'm cleaning up the house after he goes to bed, and oops, I knock over the tower. I said, oh my God, he's going to be so angry. I promised him I'd be careful. So what I do is I take the blocks and I put them back together, building a tower in the very same shape, in the very same structure, the very same order as the tower that my son had built. And in fact, I'm so careful, perhaps the blocks are numbered, I'm so careful that every block is in exactly the same position as in the case where my son built it. All right, I rebuild, or I build this tower, and my wife comes home and I say, look what our son built. This is the tower that our son built. That doesn't sound right.
Okay, sure, but the identity of the tower should still be the same. I mean,
That's
okay, the thing is, I'm struggling to apply this to any practical scenario of like personality or personal identity in humans. I don't know, I just need to listen harder.
It's not the tower that our son built. That's a tower that I built.
Because I just feel like the body theory is something that very few people believe in. I just don't understand the arguments for why you could believe it's true. There's so many against it.
This is a duplicate tower. Sure, if my son were to wake up and I didn't tell him, he wouldn't know that it was a duplicate. But when you take a wooden block tower apart,
it's just that if you say that, then the identity is not the identity of the tower. It's the identity of who created it. Identity is based on who constructed the tower then, not on the blocks themselves. when it should be on the blocks themselves.
And then put the pieces back together, piece for piece, duplicate, you don't have the very same tower that you started out with.
I think you do.
That's what von Inwagen says, and I got to admit, sounds right to me. If I were to point to that tower and say, Ari built that, I'd be saying something false. That's the very same tower.
It's false, but it's the same tower because they have the same parts and molecules.
That Ari built. No, I'd be saying something false. So von Inwagen concludes, if you have an object and you take it apart.
Let's say, right, that now with modern science, we have the ability to take one embryo from one female and put it into another female. Actually, no, that's a freaking bad example. No, it's not. We have this technology to put one embryo conceived in one female and put it in female B. Female B now has the embryo conceived in female A. There's two scenarios. Either the embryo stays in female A throughout the pregnancy or stays in female B throughout the pregnancy. Do they have the same identity based on who conceived them? Based on who gave them nutrients throughout their pregnancy? Even if they have the same DNA, the same everything. It's saying that even though they're made up of the same molecules, they have now different identities? Like, I don't think so. I think they have the same identity.
And then put it all back together again, you don't have the very same object that you started out with. So even if Judgment Day were to come and God were to reassemble the molecules and resurrect the body, it's not the very same body that you started out with. And if having the very same body is the key to personal identity.
I can't be the only one that disagrees with him. I feel like they are the same body because it's the same set of molecules, same memories, same biology, same period even than when that person died. If this reassembling scenario is true.
It's not the same person. Come Judgment Day, we've got a duplicate of me, but we don't have me. That's what von Inwagen would say if that's the way bodily resurrection would work.
Yeah, I don't agree with von Inwagen.
I don't know, theology aside, I don't know what to say about the metaphysical questions. When I think about the tower case, I do find myself inclined to say with von Inwagen, that's not the tower my son built. But when I think about the watch case, I find myself saying that is the very same watch. Now, all I can do is invite you to think about these two cases and ask yourself, well, what should we say here? Of course, for those people who think it really is the same tower, no problem. Then we say the watch and the tower, in both cases, it's the very same object. When it's reassemble the body, that'll be the very same body as well. For those
okay, great. Let's see what the comment section says. Why did he build the tower? Fish cars. I personally think every atom is a kind homogeneous materia to God and thus makes you as you were but with new material, using the soul as a conveyor of personal information. But then I don't care for judgment. Patrick Starr came to describe a soul while munching on a Krabby Patty. What did he say? Mayonnaise is subjective and pedantic. Okay. Alright, bro. Why did he build a tower? Yes, it is like the boat thing. But what if some of the blocks were rotated slightly, but because they are squares, we cannot discern which blocks were placed identically and which were rotated from their original state? Well, in the hypothetical, he said that the blocks were numbered and it was exactly the same molecule. Molecule by molecule, exactly the same in this hypothetical. They moved the London Bridge to the USA, and so it is still the same bridge as it was disassembled and reassembled painstakingly. I agree with you. I do believe that it is the same bridge. I mean, can you elaborate on your mayonnaise conclusion? Okay, to be honest, when we look at mayonnaise and you consider how it's assembled, right, with the eggs, the oil, every single freaking mayonnaise jar has the same identity because they're all assembled with the same molecules. Wait, actually, hold on. That might actually be kind of a metaphorical question. Hold on. I was joking about that, but then I kind of who's calling me? Why are you calling me your baby? I don't know you. Okay, anyway. Anyway, does each mayonnaise jar have a different identity? Or does every single mayonnaise jar have the same identity if they were used with the exact same ingredients, the exact same the exact same mixture? Oh my lord, I can't talk. But that's what I mean. It's like we can have multiple varieties of this exact pillow with the exact same amount of fluff in it, but they all have different identities because they're separate objects. And so that's why I mean I think he needs to touch on the way that perspective and our perception and our senses influence our intuitive understanding of identity. And so, if we are going to say that identity is actually related in some way to Plato's world of forms, which is the world that there is an ideal object of every single concept there is in life. There's an ideal concept of every single concept ever to exist. There's an ideal soda can, an ideal microphone, an ideal laptop. All of these ideals, this identity. Then does that mean that every laptop has the same identity? But then it would be different for humans. There's an ideal B in this world of forms. Every mayonnaise jar has a different story. Different story. I just feel that things with consciousness and things like objects must be treated completely differently. Wait, let me see. I love when B reads the sidetrack conversations we have mid-convo and has no clue what we are talking about. No, I don't. It's in the Yale game. If you replace the first letter of mayo with another letter, is it still mayo? So like if you called it KO, how important is the word to describe the product? I don't think it's important at all. Cuz it's more so about the concept. That's more so asking about language. That's oh my god. Somebody was oh my god. Wait, please don't call me baby. No, somebody else was saying that. If you didn't say it, then you wouldn't be asking if you said it. What the heck? What's going on? Stop. He needs to read the uh 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 uh. I was exactly thinking KO. No, because we're just connected. We're just connected, Momo Jimmy. Oh my god. An ideal city? Oh my goodness. The ideal city. Full of forests and Chick-fil-A.
People who say, yeah, von Inwagen was right about the tower, and the same thing would be true about the watch. The reassembled watch isn't the very same watch. Then we have to say bodily resurrection would not be the very same body. So that wouldn't be me waking up on Judgment Day. The alternative is to try to find some relevant difference between the watch case and the tower case. Something that allows us to say that, well, when you reassemble the watch, it is the same watch. When you reassemble the tower, it's not the same tower. Here's the explanation of why those two things work differently in the reassembly cases. And
What is the Plato's form of identity? What is the form of identity? That is the question.
Then, of course, we'd have to further investigate whether when you reassemble a body, is it more like the watch case?
The Mayo question genuinely messed me up. Like, oh my god. Now I'm thinking about it completely differently. Maybe every jar of mayo does genuinely have a different story, and for that reason, it has a different identity. But I think in the way I was defining it prior, it's like there's no way that can happen. It's like every Diet Coke can has the same identity. And it's like, well, obviously, I don't think that's intuitively true. Like, these are different. Oh my god, I did not know this was full. I almost dropped it all over my laptop. These contain same ingredients, made up in the same way, probably in the same factory. It's got Santa on it. There's no way they have the same identity, bro. Diet Coke Con 1, Diet Coke. Oh my god, I can't talk. I can't talk. Okay.
Or is it more like the tower case?
I'm reading the chat again. I don't understand mayo anymore. I think we are debating the mayonnaise, but not the mayonnaise jar. No, because the mayonnaise jar are also the same. Let's say that they're all so exactly the same. Or are we also incorporating the mayonnaise jar? That's another freaking question. If the mayonnaise is the exact same ingredients, but it's a different brand, relabeled, do they have the same identity? Guayo. Guayo. Is mayonnaise an instrument? The left one is the left one, though, and the right one is the right one. Right. But we need a definition for absolutely everything, objects and humans, that makes that distinction. I don't know. It's just intuitive. Trust me, bro. I'm just kidding. Imagine philosophy ended.
I just have to confess, I don't know what the best thing to say about these cases is. I find myself inclined to think reassembled watch, reassembled tower, not same tower. Maybe there's a difference there. I don't have a good theory as to what the difference is. Since I don't have a good theory as to what the difference is, I'm not in a good position to decide whether a reassembled body would be the same body or a different body. I don't know. So there's metaphysical work to be done here by any...
I have a question. If you drank a jar of mayo and it was so gross that you threw it up. Okay, guys, I'm being so serious. It's funny, but I'm being serious. And you threw it up and it magically reassembled in the way it was. Does it have the same identity? Is it the same mayo? I mean, it was in your body, the same, it's like it's traveling down, come back up. It has to be the same mayo. It has to be.
Anybody who's at least interested in getting this theory of identity worked out properly. Still, at least the possibility that we could work this out is still there. So I suppose there's still at least the possibility that bodily resurrection would be coherent in such a way that it would still be the same body. So if we accept the body theory, could there be a life after death? Could there be survival of the death of my body? Seems like, as far as I can tell, it's still a possibility, although there's some puzzles here that I don't know how to see my way through. Mind you, that's not the...
To be honest, I think the Mayo question has messed me up because it's more so about objects and molecules, and I don't believe that Mayo has consciousness. And so it's so much easier to answer in humans because you could say that there's an ideal form of me, but the form of me is not a human, The ideal form of the Coke can is going to be a perfect form of a Coke can, but there's not going to be an ideal form of me as a human. It's going to be more so an ideal form of my consciousness, an all-encompassing fourth, fifth dimensional form of my consciousness, of my identity. And that makes much more sense with humans rather than objects. So I think there does have to be a different definition when you're talking about things with consciousness and things without. Come on, get to the consciousness part.
Not to say that I myself do believe that there will be a judgment day, and on that day God will reassemble the bodies, but it at least seems like a coherent possibility. Let's refine the body view. I've been suggesting that the key here, the idea of whether it's the same person or not, is whether it's the same body. But of course, as we know when thinking about familiar objects, we don't need to have every single piece of an object, of an entity, stay the same to have the same thing. So I think I previously talked about the steering wheel in my car. Every time I drive the steering wheel in my car, I rub off some atoms, but that's okay. It's still the very same physical object. The steering wheel is, having the same steering wheel is compatible with changing of a few pieces.
I believe Aristotle equated the soul, and I guess in this case it would be something related to identity, with what the body could do and what the object serves to do. That's so, I don't know.
Same thing is true for bodies, right? You get sunburned, your skin peels, you've lost some atoms in your body, doesn't really matter. It's still the very same body. So if body is the key to personal identity, we don't have to worry about the fact that we're constantly gaining and losing atoms. Yes, question?
What about like someone who loses a lot of weight, like from being like a really heavy person to like really, really thin person? People treat them different and they feel different. What about in that case?
Good. The question was, what about somebody who loses a huge amount of weight? They feel different, people treat them different. What about that case? Well, I think if we're doing metaphysics as opposed to sort of psychology, psychologically we understand why losing weight might make a real difference to how you feel about yourself. And we might even say loosely, it's as though she's a whole new person. But strictly speaking, we don't think it is literally a whole new person. It's not as though we say, poor Linda died when she entered the spa, or a week into the spa.
I killed my last personality and it's working out. That was like one of my video titles.
When she dropped those 50 pounds, somebody else who remembers all of Linda's childhood, some imitator came along. We don't say different person. We say same person lost a lot of weight. Now that's not a problem for the body view, because on the body view, the question is it the same body? And what we want to say, of course, is look, just like it's still your body even if you break your arm, even though it's still your body after you've eaten dinner, and so now some molecules have been absorbed into your body that weren't there before, it's still your body after you lose some molecules, even a lot of molecules. There can be changes in your body that are compatible with it still being the same body.
My question is, what if you replace all of your arms and legs with cyborg arms and legs? Or what if you become a paraplegic? So in the second scenario, if you're a paraplegic, people will say, well, you still have the same body, still the same identity in that sense if you believe in the body theory. But more people would be less inclined to believe the first scenario, where if you replace your arms and your limbs with cyborg limbs, then it's not your body. And in that sense, if you believe in the body theory, you would not have the same identity.
Now, we might worry about the which changes. Are all the changes...
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly not as though any change will do. I mean, suppose what happens is Linda goes to bed, and what we do in the middle of the night is we, take away that body and put some new body there. Well, that, 100% change, that's clearly too much. Change of, some small percentage from eating, not a problem. Change from the somewhat larger percentage of losing a fair bit of weight doesn't seem to be a problem. So, which changes in bodies make for a different body, and which changes in body make for the same body? And in particular, how should we run that if we're thinking about the body as the key to personal identity? I think if we have that question in front of our minds, we're going to want to say not all parts of the body are equally important. You lose a fair bit of weight, some fat from your gut, not a problem. Here's one of my favorite examples. In the Star Wars movies, Darth Vader whips out his lightsaber and slashes off the hand of Luke Skywalker, right? Luke, I am your father. No! Then the hand goes, right? the very next scene, this always amazed me, the very next scene, Luke's got an artificial hand that's been attached to his body, and they never even
Yay, he's saying my example.
mention it again. No one says, oh, poor Luke, he died when Darth Vader cut off the hand. It seems pretty clear that not all parts of the body matter. You can lose a hand and still survive. Same body, except now without a hand. Suppose Darth Vader had aimed a little higher and cut off Luke's entire arm. Still be Luke. Still be Luke's body. Suppose, even worse, Darth Vader slices off both arms and both legs. Still be Luke. Still be Luke's body, though now without arms and legs. What part of the body, if any, is essential? Well, here's a proposal.
Then he's gonna say the brain, and then he's gonna say consciousness, and then he gets into consciousness finally. Please. Please. Let me check chat. Oh my god, I have horrible posture. Let's not bring consciousness into this. But it has to be. Mayo is the seventh. Oh my goodness, we're still talking about mayo. Mayo jars the vessel, mayo is the soul. Alright. 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 That's another question, okay? What happens to the identity of the egg when you make it into mayo? Does the egg die as an identity? I think it dies. The egg died, but it lives on in the mayo. And then if you apply that to souls, or if you apply that to the body theory, if you do believe in it, which I have never heard anybody believe in the body theory. But imagine your identity, it dies when you decompose, but then does it live on in the soil and whatever trees you become a part of? Oh my goodness. We have to talk about consciousness. Is it Hellman's mayo? Okay. I like it. Oh my god, me too. Okay, that was kind of an overreaction. I like mixing ketchup and mayo, then dipping french fries in there. No, my freaking grandma taught me that. I love it too. Okay, David Hume suggests that the self is merely a collection of perceptions with no underlying essence or continuity. I mean, you can't really deny that, but we're more so talking about identity. Is that self then identity? Is identity the collection of perceptions that you've had? That I would disagree. Identity is something deeper. It's like a different layer. But I mean the self. Very much so. Collection of perceptions. I could see how there could be a solid argument for that. Is it a different body from what it was before? But you can call it yours. Our sense of self is constructed in the brain, relying on memory, perception, and consciousness, which can change over time. True. The hardware remains the same, but the software modifies itself. Yes. I mean, David Hume is probably very sound in his argumentation, but identity is just completely different. What if you get a brain parasite? That's also a really good hypothetical. Because a lot of people, I think what he's about to talk about now is they relate the brain with identity, or more so, consciousness with identity. So then, if you get a brain parasite, is that identity gone? Or even a brain tumor, is that identity gone because then you have been changed by something external to you? Oh, and then maybe it might get into the concept of authenticity and what you believe that is. Authenticity and identity. Oh my goodness. But if he cut off Luke's head, then is Luke the body or the head? You see, that's a good question as well. I don't know. Bro, they did not have mayonnaise in the Star Wars universe. Only humans can create mayonnaise. I actually love mayonnaise. I don't know why I'm acting like I hate it. I actually really love mayonnaise. That's a problem. What came first, the chicken or the Luke? So does a caterpillar die when it emerges from its cocoon? You see, that's another good hypothetical. I think it's these hypotheticals that make people not inclined towards the body theory. Because it just doesn't make intuitive sense. Like, no, the caterpillar doesn't die when it emerges from its cocoon. It's transformed. Even though it has different atoms, different molecules than it did a few days ago, a week ago. It still has the same underlying identity. So the hard question that we're trying to answer is, how do we define this identity in all cases then? And if they didn't have mayonnaise, what did they put on egg? Stop! Oh my god. Are trees part of our body because we breathe the oxygen they make? No. I don't think so. What if an AI takes over your neural systems? You see, and then once you start questioning consciousness in relation to identity, then you start questioning authenticity in that consciousness. How much external influences are affecting your consciousness? What if an AI takes over your neural systems? Then is that still yourself? Is that still your consciousness? Even if you may perceive that it is your consciousness, something else is controlling it. Or rather, you become the egg because you absorb it, or rather the egg becomes you. They don't have nacho cheese in Star Wars. Okay. 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 No, we need oxygen to live. Stop with the slippery slope, Momo Jimmy. Stop. No. Okay.
It seems to me we'd say something rather different if what happened was that what got destroyed was Luke's brain. Suppose that Darth Vader uses the Force, the dark side of the Force, of course. Darth Vader uses the dark side of the Force to destroy, to turn into pea soup Luke Skywalker's brain. Now I think we might want to say, well, look, no more Luke. And if what happens is they drag out some replacement brain, still not Luke. At least that's a possible version of the body view. According to this version, which I take to be the most promising, the best version of the body view, the crucial question in thinking about personal identity is whether it's the same body, but not all parts of the body matter equally. The most important part of the body is the brain. Well, why the brain? No
because consciousness.
Surprise there, because of course the brain is the part, we now know, the brain is the part of the body that is the house of your personal identity, your personality, your beliefs, your desires, your fears, your ambitions, your goals, your memories. That's all housed in the brain. And so that's the part of the brain that's the key part of the body for the purpose of personal identity. That's what I'm inclined to think is the best version of the body view. We find examples of this thought that the brain is the key in odd places. So let me actually share one with you. This was something from the internet that my brother sent to me some years ago. It purports to be...
He says internet so funnily. The internet. I don't know.
From a transcript from an actual trial in which a lawyer is cross-examining the doctor. And anyway, so you'll see, I don't actually know whether it's true or not, whether it's just somebody made it up, but it purports to be true. Question: Doctor, before you performed the autopsy, did you check for a pulse? Answer: no. Question: did you check for blood pressure? Answer: no. Question: did you check for breathing? Answer: no. Question: so then it is possible that the patient was alive when you began the autopsy? Answer: no. Question: how can you be so sure, doctor? Answer: because his brain was sitting on my desk in a jar. Question: but could the patient have still been alive nevertheless? Answer: it is possible that he could have been alive and practicing law somewhere. Now, the point, the reason this is funny, other than, of course, the obvious moral, which is that lawyers are morons, is that, of course, and why is it so clear the lawyer's got to be a moron? Because, of course, we think, look, lose a hand, the guy could still be alive. Lose an arm, lose a leg, lose the brain, he's not alive. So again, it's hardly kind of philosophical proof, but it shows that we're drawn to the thought that the key part of the body is the brain. Now, think about what the implication of holding that view. Suppose we adopt that version of the body view. If I get a liver transplant, so here I am, and we take out my liver and we put Jones's liver inside. I've gotten a liver transplant. It's still me. Suppose we rip out my heart and put Jones's heart in here. I've gotten a heart transplant. It's still me. Suppose we rip out my lungs and put in Jones's lungs. I've gotten a lung transplant. It's still me. Suppose we rip out my brain, put in Jones's brain. Have I gotten a brain transplant? No. What's happened is that Jones has gotten a body transplant, or as we might put it, a torso transplant. If we accept this version of the body theory, we say the crucial part of the body for personal identity is not sameness of torso. The crucial part of the body is sameness of brain. Just like follow the soul was the answer if we believed in the soul theory of personal identity, if we believe in the brain version of the body theory of personal identity, same person or not, follow the brain. Same brain, same person. Different brain, different person. As I've now been saying several times, I think that's the best version of the body view, although not all body theorists believe that. As you know from reading your Perry, the assigned reading his dialogue on personal identity and immortality, the heroine
I'm behind.
of that story, Gertrude actually thinks the key part of the body is the torso. Follow the torso, follow the person. That's what she thinks. I'm inclined to say no. In those moods when I accept the body theory, I'm inclined to think no, follow the brain. Gertrude would presumably say, you get a brain transplant, you got a brain transplant, because it's the same torso. I want to say, as a fan of the brain theory, you get a brain transplant, what's really happened is somebody else has gotten a torso transplant. Follow the brain. How much of the brain? Do we need all of the brain? Well, just like we didn't have to follow the parts of the body that aren't essential for housing the personality, we might ask ourselves, do we need all of the brain to house the personality?
What if it's just the frontal lobe?
Research suggests that there's a fair bit of redundancy in the brain. You can lose portions of the brain and still have a perfectly functioning, P-functioning person. Some of you may know that there have been experiments in which, for one reason or the other, the two halves of the brain have been separated. And you often end up there with sort of, well, something closer to two persons being housed within one skull, because they can often still communicate in various ways. We don't quite get that. But I gather the best research suggests we don't
I've never heard of that.
really have complete redundancy with hemispheres. But suppose that we did. Let's be science fiction-y. Suppose that, as a kind of backup security, what evolution has done is produced so much redundancy in the brain that either half of the brain would suffice. All right, so think about our brain transplant example. So there's an accident with Jones and Smith. Jones's torso gets destroyed. His brain is fine. Smith's brain has gotten destroyed. His torso is fine. We take Jones's brain, we put it in Smith's torso, we hook up all the wires, as it were. The thing wakes up. Who is that? Jones's brain, Smith's torso, follow the brain. That's Jones that woke up. Version 2, horrible accident. Jones's torso has been destroyed, and the left half of his brain has been destroyed, but the right half of his brain is still there. Smith's torso is fine, but his entire brain has been destroyed. We take the right half of Jones's brain, put it into Smith's torso, hook up all the wires the right way. The thing wakes up. Who is it? It's Jones. Follow the brain, and more particularly, follow however much of the brain it takes to have enough of the brain there to still give you the memories, beliefs, desires, and so forth and so on. If
It's not even about the memories, beliefs, desires. It's more so about the consciousness.
it were true, probably isn't true, but if it were true that half the brain was enough, then half the brain would be enough. That would be Jones that woke up. Question?
But then, under that theory, you take the two halves of Jones' brain and put them in two different people and both be Jones.
Great. The question was, on this theory, what do we say about the case where we take the two halves of Jones's brain, split them, put them in two different torsos, they both wake up, will they both be Jones? That's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful case to think about, and indeed, I am going to come back to it, but I just want to bracket it for the time being.
Wasn't that the
But it's a great
scenario
question
he
to
just
keep in mind
said?
as you think about the plausibility of the body theory. All right, so I'm inclined to think that the best version of the body theory has to do with following the brain. So one thing that a physicalist who does not believe in souls, one thing that a physicalist could say is, what's the key to personal identity? The body, sameness of body. And then I'm inclined to think the best version of the body view is the brain view. So that's something that a physicalist can say, and for that matter, it's something that a soul, somebody who believes in souls, could say as well. Even though there are souls, that may not be the key to personal identity. Maybe sameness of body is the key to personal identity. That's something that a physicalist or dualist can say, but, and this is not to make good on a promissory note I offered earlier, it's not the only view available to physicalists, or for that matter, dualists.
What do you think? B didn't laugh at the practicing loss. Okay, look, it took me a second. Sometimes I'm a little bit slow, right? Do dreams continue living when we write down what the dream was about, or is the dream but beyond recollection because our conscious mind cannot fully conceive the subconscious thoughts? I would believe that the dream is beyond recollection. I know Freud studied dreams, and he cited that, our dreams are largely affected by what we want to believe and our conscious biases. I tend to agree with that. As somebody who wrote their dreams down for over a year, I think my consciousness must have shifted them in some way, especially to make sense of them even. Do you think the dark side of the force gets... What are you talking about? Oh my god. Does a body only contain... No. Girl, I'm not getting a law degree. What about the heart? Do we feel love in our brain? If you're talking about chemicals, then yes. Oxytocin, serotonin. If you equate that to love, then yes. It depends on your definition of love. Love could be dedication, love can be admiration, idolization, and I think those things do tend to happen in the brain. So I think love does generally happen in the brain. Mostly. But it's also the body because your chemicals get redistributed that way. Oxytocin gets released, there you go. That affects our brain. But yeah, how do events in dreams have an impact on who we are when we are awake? Some experience in sleep modifies us in our awake world. Subconsciously, I mean it probably. It's very hard to identify exactly how. What if the body gets okay? Oh right. Do shoes have souls? I think shoes have identity. You see, that's the thing. What has souls and what doesn't? Do only conscious beings have souls? Hi. Hi, Tala. I know, long time no see. Okay, so much of the brain is distributed throughout the body and the nervous system. I don't think you can just separate the two when discussing identity. That's what I mean. That when he's saying brain, he doesn't mean the brain. He means consciousness. And I'm begging him to touch on this. What's the name of this video? It says in the very, very corner. Personal identity part 2. Okay. Can you love without feeling it? Yeah, I think that psychopaths can love people who are incapable of feeling. Oh my goodness, thank you. I am taking you serious, just only sometimes, okay? Like, I'm not gonna answer the dumb question. Okay. Shoes have a soul contract. Was that a joke? Okay. I know. Anyway.
Even if there are no souls, we don't have to say that the key to personal identity is the sameness of the body. We could instead say the key to personal identity is the sameness of the personality. After all, go back to the Lockean worries about the soul theory of personal identity. It seemed very hard to believe that it isn't the same person when the memories and beliefs and desires and goals and ambitions and fears are all the same. Even if the soul is constantly changing, it seems as though we wanted to say same person. Why? Roughly speaking, because it's the same personality. And with the body view, when I started arguing a few moments ago that the best version of the body view was the brain view, why did that seem plausible? Why didn't we say that Luke died when he lost his wrist? Because the brain, after all, was the part of the body that houses the personality. Enough of the brain was good enough, I said. What counts as good enough? Enough to keep the personality. Well, if what we think is really important...
It's not even personality, it's consciousness. I don't think he should be labeling it as personality. I think the traditional definition of personality contradicts what he's saying, because personality changes throughout your life. And so if your personality changes, then obviously that cannot be your identity, because then you'd be constantly changing identities.
The personality, why don't we just say the key to personal identity is the personality? Let's just say it's me, provided that there's somebody who's got the same set of beliefs, desires, goals, memories, ambitions, fears.
That's another problem too. It's just not personality.
To coin a word, the same personality. So the secret to personal identity on this new proposal isn't sameness of body, it's sameness of personality. Now, it's important to bear in mind that this view is perfectly compatible with being a physicalist. After all, we're not saying that in order to have personalities, you need to have something non-physical. As physicalists, we can still say that the basis of personality is that there are bodies that are functioning in certain ways. But for all that, the key to the same person could have to do with the personality rather than the sameness of bodies. Of course, normally the way you get the same personality is by having the same body. Still, if we ask, what's doing the metaphysical work here? What's the key to being the same person? We can say, sameness of body gave us the same personality, but it was sameness of personality that made it be the very same person. Could there be some way to get sameness of personality while not having sameness of body? Maybe. I mean, suppose that we had some disease. The doctor tells me the horrible news that I'm going to have some disease that's going to eventually turn my brain into pea soup. But luckily, just before it does it, they can take all of my personality and put it into an artificial replacement brain. So there'll be this, just like you can have artificial hearts, artificial livers, you can have artificial brains, which will get imprinted with the same personality. Same memories, same beliefs, same desires, same fears, same goals. We obviously can't do that. This is a science fiction story. But at least
I still think there's a problem that if you literally change one belief, you have a different identity.
Allows you to see how the body and the personality could come apart.
No, you just have a different personality. There's layers, and I'm almost tempted to skip this part. I'm not gonna lie.
And so we could have same personality without literally the same brain. If personality is the key to personal identity, that would still be me. Hold off again for a few minutes at least on the question, so what should we believe here? The body view, the personality view. Let's try to refine the personality theory. So again, the point I was just emphasizing was, even if we accept the personality theory, this doesn't threaten our being physicalists. We can still say, the reason that we've got the same personality in the normal cases, there's some physical explanation of where what houses the personality, but for all that, the key to personal identity is same personality. Notice, by the by, that somebody who believes in souls could also accept the personality theory of personal identity. Locke believed in souls. He just didn't think they were the key to personal identity. So you might think, oh, no, the physicalist is wrong when the physicalist says that personality, memory, belief, consciousness, what have you, is housed or based in the body. It's based in an immaterial soul. Dualists could say that. And yet, for all that, the dualist could consistently say, still, same soul is not the key to personal identity. Same personality is the key to personal identity. If God replaces my soul every 10 minutes, as long as he does it in such a way as to imprint the very same personality on the soul, it doesn't matter any more than it didn't matter whether or not some of my body parts were changing. So the personality theory of personal identity can be accepted by physicalists.
The personality theory just completely breaks up identity. Because I feel like personality is so easily changeable. So easily changeable. And there's not some underlying identity that like you're supposed to be. There's an authentic self underneath. That is your personality, that is your identity either. I don't accept that view at all. I think it's very much chosen.
And it can be accepted by dualists. So, just to sort of keep score, right now we've got three basic...
That also doesn't make sense to me if it is accepted by dualists, because let's say the dualist believes in reincarnation. When you reincarnate, you're very, very, very likely to not have the same personality. So it's like you might have the same soul. I thought the whole concept of the soul theory was supposed to be centered around the soul, not the personality like this. I guess it does. It covers the whole of unverifiability in the hypothetical scenario that some made-up God is constantly changing your soul minute by minute. You just don't recognize it because the soul is imprinted with your beliefs and personality, as he's defining it here. But that's all it does. It covers that one hole, that one sector of unverifiability, and it still breaks apart.
Theories of personal identity on the table. The soul theory, key to personal identity is the same soul. The body theory, key to personal identity is the same body, where the best version, I think, is the brain version of the body theory. And the personality theory, the key to personal identity is having the very same personality.
There has to be a consciousness theory, though. There has to be. Come on, somebody must have. I don't agree with any of them. Or something with Plato's forms. There has to be. The thing is, there's holes in all of them, and he's even covering all of the holes in all of them. He's not proposing that any of these are true. And I think if something is able to be so easily argued against, then why even have that theory at all? That should not be considered a theory. It's just not able to be considered something that is considered at all.
Well, again, we've got to be careful about refining this. Just like we all agreed, I suppose, that you can have the very same body even though some of the parts come and go. Atoms get added, other atoms get knocked off. We'd better say, that you can have the very same personality even if some of the elements in your personality change.
Okay.
After all, we defined the personality in terms of it being a set of beliefs and...
But if every single factor, hypothetical scenario, if every single different characteristic of your personality changes, then how do you know that your identity is still the same? And then he should be talking about consciousness, I hope.
Memories and desires and goals and fears and so forth. But those things are constantly changing. I have all sorts of memories now that I didn't have when I was 10. I have memories of getting married, for example. I wasn't married when I was 10. So Does the personality theorist have to say, uh-oh, different personality? That kid no longer exists. That person died. Got married, new memories, died. If we say that, we have very, very short lives. Because after all, right now, I've got some memories that I didn't have 2 hours ago.
2 seconds ago.
I have some memories I didn't have 20 minutes ago. If every time you got a new memory, you had a new personality.
Also, this personality definition was just made up out of thin air. He's defining personality as all of your memories, your beliefs, your goals, your fears, your desires. Why? I don't know if people even associate their memories with personality generally. I don't even think this is a traditional definition, to be honest.
And the personality theory said having the very same personality was the key to survival, then none of us survive more than a few seconds. Well, the answer presumably is going to be that the best version of the personality theory doesn't require item for item having the very same beliefs, memories, desires, and so forth, but instead requires enough gradual overlap. Your personality can change and evolve over time. So here I am as a 10-year-old child. I've got certain desires, certain memories. As the year goes by, I get some new memories. I get I lose some of my goals. I no longer, when I was 10, when I grew up, I wanted to be a trash collector. That was my first chosen profession. At some point, I gave up that desire. I didn't want to be a trash collector anymore. I wanted to be, kid you not, I wanted to be a logician when I was a teenager. I wanted to study symbolic logic. So at a certain point, I gave that up, right? So my memories, my desires were changing, but they all changed gradually. I lost some old memories. I don't remember everything I remembered when I was 10. When I was in 10, I had pretty vivid memories of kindergarten. Now I have very sketchy memories of kindergarten. Still, it wasn't abrupt. It was gradual. There was this slow evolution of the personality. And so when the personality theorist says the key...
So is the key to personality slow evolution? So I think he's proposing that even if every single one of your aspects of personality changed, I guess memory can't. I don't know why he would include memory in the definition, but excluding memory, if every single one of your characteristics of personality changed, as long as it was a slow, gradual evolution, it's still your personality and therefore still your identity. Why? No.
Key to personal identity is the same personality. They don't mean literally the very same set of beliefs and desires. They mean rather the same slowly evolving personality.
But then what is slowly evolving? That is identity. The underlying of what is slowly evolving. I don't think identity has to be equated with characteristics. I don't know.
Here's an analogy. Suppose I had a rope that stretched from that end of the room all the way across to this end of the room. Very same rope at that end as this end. What makes up a rope? Well, ropes are basically bundles of fibers, very thin fibers that have been woven together in a certain way. But the interesting thing is the fibers themselves aren't actually all that long. They might be a couple of inches or at most a foot or so. And so no single fiber stretches all the way across the room. Or even if some fibers did, most of the fibers don't. Does that force us to say, so it's not the very same rope at the end as at the beginning? No, we don't have to say that at all. What we want to say is it's the same rope as long as there's this pattern of overlapping fibers. Certain fibers end, but most of the fibers are continuing. Some new fibers get introduced. They continue for a while. Eventually, maybe those fibers end, but some new fibers have been introduced in the meantime. As long as it's not abrupt, right? Imagine I take my scissors and cut out a foot in the middle. Then we'd say there isn't the right kind of pattern of overlap and continuity. Now we really do have two ropes. One rope here, one rope there. But if, in contrast, there is the right kind of pattern...
I would also question, let's suppose you take a person with multiple personalities, with the disorder of multiple personalities. I don't know the official name at the top of my head. Does that mean they have drastically different identities, all in the same person? What would you say to that?
pattern of overlap and continuity.
They have different memories, different goals, different beliefs, everything. I guess he would say that they have different identities, whereas I would disagree. I would say that the singular identity is underneath all of those personalities. I think we have to make a distinction between personality and identity. There's absolutely not a distinction. There's absolutely not a relationship between both of them. I actually think it's a problem to equate personality with identity, because then now the personality becomes part of you. Your past patterns, your past beliefs become part of you. And what does that create? It creates bias. It creates bias that hinders your development, your evolution as a human that you want to have.
Same
That's what I was arguing in my last video. I said a lot of too many big words. I don't think I explained it well. That's essentially what I was saying.
rope, even if no single fiber makes it all the way across. Something analogous needs to be said by the personality theorist. Even if I have few or no memories identical to the ones that I had when I was 10, that's okay. We can still say it's the same personality, the same evolving personality, so long as there's kind of a pattern of overlap and continuity. New memories get added, some memories get lost, new goals get added, some goals get lost, new beliefs get added, some beliefs get lost. There might be few beliefs, desires, goals that made it all the way through. But as long as there's the right kind of overlap and continuity, same personality. All right, so what do we got? 3 views. Soul view, body view, personality view. 3 rival theories about the key to personal identity. Now,
I wonder what he thinks, because I don't think he agrees with any of them like I do.
which of these is right? Well, since I don't myself believe in souls, it's hardly going to surprise you to learn that I don't think the soul theory of personal identity is right. For me, the choice boils down to the choice between the body theory of personal identity and the personality theory of personal identity. Of course, in real life, they go hand in hand. In ordinary cases, at least, same body, same personality, both theories are going to say it's the very same person. And if you believe in souls, you're likely to think same soul as well. In ordinary cases, you have the same soul, same body, same personality, same person. To think about which one of these is the key to personal identity, we need to think about cases, maybe somewhat fantastical, science fiction-y, in which they come apart. Cases in which bodies and personalities go their own ways, as it were. So that's what I'm going to do.
It's not even science fiction. Multiple personality disorder. Let me check comments real quick. Dissociative identity disorder. Perfect. Do you guys... Okay. Alright, let me go. Oh my goodness, I missed so much. B has answered all of my dumb questions. What did Jimmy do wrong? Oh my... Give that man some water. No, literally, give me some water too. Personality is a thing that's treated here like a distinct thing. Personality can shift slightly over time. I guess he mentioned that later. This was probably quite a long time ago. As you age, your IQ decreases. I don't think he defined IQ as being part of your personality, but you could. It really depends on your definition. What I'm really struggling with here is that he's not defining things properly. You kind of have to assume the definitions for yourself in the way that he is describing them. You know, I don't think he asserts his foundations very well. And I mean, it's just a philosophy 101 class. It's not really supposed to be rigorous. It's supposed to be an introduction to the general population. Maybe there is some courses out there on youtube.com that do define their foundations well. There are building blocks in your choice. You can produce poetry that's very witty when you're young, and maybe a little less witty as you age, but still similar. Okay. Referral. This is skills. Are building blocks in your choice can influence. Also, sociology shows that people become more conservative as they age. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, obviously, personality changes throughout your life. Your beliefs change throughout your life. Identity comes down to how you relate to slash value the symbols the mind has constructed. So you're saying that identity is very much related to your perceptions. Comes down to how you relate to slash value the symbols the mind has constructed. So it's your perception of reality and specifically of symbols. I need you to specifically explain what symbols you mean. But if you mean symbols in general, symbols as in every single symbol in your environment, this Diet Coke is a symbol, this laptop is a symbol, then yeah, then you'd say your identity is dependent on how you are perceiving your external reality. I think it's kind of similar to personality, except it's not your judgments, but rather your perception. I think somebody else also mentioned that earlier. I'm very happy to have subbed to your channel offhand here. Yay! Okay. I mean, it's the questions if you woke up with a completely new set of memories, would one be a different person, or is there some intrinsic intangible thing that makes one of them isn't? I do subscribe to the idea that there is some intrinsic intangible thing that separates one identity from the other. I think it has to do with ideals, Plato's forms, that I was talking about earlier. It's like evolution, but within a single lifetime, yes. Do you guys think mayonnaise can evolve? Do you think that if you threw a Pokeball at a jar of mayonnaise, it would go into the Pokeball? You answer me, Patrick. Of maybe psychopaths don't change as there's some apparent flaw in integration of memory or punishment. Mm, but their beliefs change. You mean don't change your personality? And they commit the same acts, you integrate memory and change the purpose of the physical world. For instance, they still listen to, oh my god. Uh, this topic is basically see what framework resonates with you and use it to learn about yourself. The way it's presented, yes. I think because this is a philosophy 101 class, he's not really getting into too many of, I guess he is getting into the arguments, but not enough. Not enough for me. He's not defining things very well um, anymore. This and that's the thing, right? Now that we have education like this, we have knowledge like this presented in um such an easily accessible way, we now have the responsibility to choose a framework of life. And my video was putting this decision into perspective. That not only is this a decision of framework and fundamental beliefs, but also a decision of identity and characteristics. Because once you understand the philosophical underlying and foundations to beliefs that then affect your actions and your thoughts and your emotions, then you have the choice of what identity you want to express to the world. Or in that case, it would be personality that you express to the world, not necessarily identity. Ba, ba, ba. I don't want. I want him to speak louder. Really? Okay. Diet Coke. Am I stressed? No. Why? He likes the sound of his. A lot of this guy's talking points seem kind of pedantic to me. That's what I'm freaking saying, that he needs to define things. I think it's because it's philosophy 101. Like the presentation is just, I want to read the comments. We should read the comments. Let's see what they're saying. Maybe they're complaining too. I feel like we could get a lot deeper, a lot faster if you didn't keep asking if you're the same person after cutting your nails. No, literally, that's what I'm saying. We're experiencing a new flavor of ice cream. Literally. Because if this was a YouTube video, people would click off right now. Like if this was my YouTube video, the the freaking viewership would go down every time I freaking talked about a new example. Okay, I'm just being a hater. I'm really being a hater. I like how he is feeling comfortable sitting on the desk and walking around. I do enjoy that. I do. How many forms does Plato have, and is this even his final form? I think the whole thing is that the forms are infinite based on the infinite number of concepts that there are in an objective reality. gotta ask, why are you asking these kinds of questions? Because I believe that these kinds of foundational questions shape your view of the world, therefore your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And I want to know how those foundational beliefs affect those actions so that I could be conscious of my brain, conscious of my intentions. I really value self-awareness. That's why I'm asking these questions specifically. Don't even know you and the feeling isn't. What? What are you talking about, bro? Okay, he comes back and circles around to the beginning. A lot of circular reasoning. No, literally. Okay, let's read the comments. Comments are turned off? What are we talking about? Bro, it's a Yale course. That is so ironic. A YouTube video about philosophy, a course of discussion, has the comments turned off. I don't know why. It's not like the comments would be hating him that hard. I'm so confused. Why would there be... Isn't my Chrome extension... No, I have comments. What the heck? Bro, I've never disabled comments. Anyway, there's 2 minutes left of this. Let's just finish this.
I'm going to tell you a story in which your body ends up one place and your personality ends up someplace else. And I'm going to invite you to think about which of these two resulting end products is me. If you can figure out which one's you, that would tell you whether you think the body theory is the right theory or the personality theory is the right theory. Now, what's going to be our guide? I'm going to, rather gruesomely, not in real life, science fiction story, I'm going to torture one of the two end products. I'm going to ask you, which one do you want to be tortured? Or to put the point more properly, which one do you want to not be tortured? Because I'm going to assume, I'm going to take it, that it's important to you that you not be tortured. So by seeing who you want to keep safe, this will help you see which one you think is you.
Your personality cannot feel pain because it doesn't have nerve receptors. So the question's invalid.
Of course, I've got to be sure that you're thinking about this in the right way. Like, some of you are probably good, moral individuals, and you don't want anybody to be tortured. You know, I say, oh, I'm about to torture Linda over there. You say, no, don't torture Linda. Still, if I were to say to you, I'm about to torture you, you'd say, no, don't torture me, and there'd be some extra little something when you said that, right? So I want to invite you to keep that extra little something in mind. When we tell the stories, which we won't get till next time, when we tell the stories next time, and I say, okay, who do you want to be tortured, this person or that person, the question is, from that special egoistic perspective that we're all familiar with, which is the one you really care about? That's going to be our guide to deciding what's the key to personal identity. But
Okay, is there a part 3? I swear. Why is there a part 3? Okay. Why is there a part 4? Oh, I can't cover this. I literally need to go in 10 minutes. But anyway. Damn. My hair's really white. Honestly, okay, when I was dyeing it, right? They told me like, wow, your hair is lifting really fast, even though it has literally black dye under it. And I was like, I'm just built different. I'm built different. They were telling me my hair was gonna look brown. And then they were like, wait, no. This is like white. I was thinking of going whiter, but like, wow. My roots are already growing in. See? Okay, I just wanted to share that with the class. Okay. Da 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 da. B look. I meant I like the chill dude explains format. Let's get right into it. See, devils are known to be evil. Love is known to be good. Comments are working over here. Mm-hmm. 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 Italian hand gesture. He's like up, 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 up. Okay, I mean, the concept I've been tackling with is in our postmodern society, we're presented with all of these different perspectives, all of these different ideas. How do you choose which one you want to apply? What are you going to prioritize? So far, I've identified 3 prioritizations that you can take. Prioritize truth, prioritize personal preferences, or prioritize utility. If you prioritize utility, then you're prioritizing what beliefs serve you the best. You don't care if they're true. You care if they make you happier, which is a preference technically, that you want to be happier in your life. They make you happier. They make you more productive. Maybe depending on whatever life you want to live, they make you more productive. They make you more money. They do whatever you want. The purpose of prioritizing utility is prioritizing, in a sense, delusion. You don't care if the belief is true. You hold it because it serves you in some way, because it has utility. Now, if you prioritize preference, personal preference, I believe this is a slippery slope because it has to be very conscious. Because you could prefer to believe in the anti-vax movement. I prefer to believe that because 2 generations ago, my grandma got autism after she got 2 vaccines in the arm. So that's my preference. And so I think really the ideal, some sort of ideal, combines all 3 of these preferences, all 3 of these perspectives of holding an idea. There's some truth, there's some preference, there's some utility, and that's my proposition. If you want to live a life, understand whether you're holding something because it's a preference, a utility thing, or you believe it's the objective truth and you have things to back that up. I just think self-awareness and consciousness is very important. Intentionality is very important. That's personal preference. I'm doing the Italian. Okay. I choose suffering. Yeah, exactly. Like if you're black-pilled, people need to realize they're consciously choosing suffering. They're consciously focusing on the suffering, consciously focusing on the negative. That's what I mean more so by intentionality. At least be self aware that the perspective you are holding in this postmodern society with all of our different perspectives is because it's a preference. You are focusing on this because you want to, for some reason or the other. Maybe you think it's true. But in terms of black pill, I mean, it is really a preference because even though something can be true, like some ideas in black pill you could say are true, like oh yes, people do treat you differently if you're attractive. That's generally true. So you can take that truth and then you can focus on it, but that focus is a preference. It's no longer about truth. I think just being aware and intentional of those 3 categorizations, truth, preference, utility, in the beliefs you are holding, makes you a conscious individual overall. But yeah, do you think, a very important question, very important, do you think mayonnaise is self-aware that it's mayonnaise, or do you think it still believes it's an egg? Oh my goodness, this might be the question to break the centuries, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, to be honest, I think it's in denial. Mayonnaise just kind of gives me the feeling that it likes to be a little bit stubborn, you know, so it still thinks it's an egg, and all the eggs are like mixed together, and they're all fighting, like, I'm still an egg, I'm still an egg. And it's like, I'm still an egg, and all the eggs just think they're part of a community. Okay. You're welcome, you're welcome. The halo effect. Yeah, I think the halo effect exists for sure. There is no black pill, it's all light at the end of the okay, okay, okay. Perception is reality. Perception is your reality. Yes, in a way. Okay. Bro, why is there four? Like, maybe in the fourth part he actually gets into stuff.
Let me start by reviewing the problem that we were considering last week. We were raising a difficulty for the personality theory of personal identity, according to which the key to being the same person is having the very same ongoing, evolving personality. And the difficulty was basically the problem of duplication. That it seemed as though
I don't even think that's the biggest problem. Anyway, I need to go. I need to go. I have an errand to run. Any last words? Actually, I have 5 more minutes. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna stay live for 5 more minutes because then I wouldn't know what to do in the 5 minutes and I would just be waiting until I need to go into the call. Super Mayo Bros. Enough with the freaking mayo. Actually, I'm a big mayo fan. I can't even lie to you, okay? I love eating eggs and rice and mayo. I love eating salmon and rice and mayo and sriracha. I love dipping my freaking fries in mayo. I love putting like 4 tablespoons of mayo on my burgers. I can't lie to you anymore. Literally. How come you cannot lie to me? I can't lie to you because it's my personal preference. It's what I'm focusing on in my life. You know, what's crazy is that I actually do believe in lying. I do believe that there are cases where I want to lie and I will lie. Have I lied here ever? No. I've lied very infrequently, very, but I'm always conscious of the fact when I am. And I'm doing it for a reason, and I still do believe that that's authenticity because personally my definition of authenticity is being in alignment with some chosen intentional values, and in that moment when I lied, I was in alignment with those intentional values. You know, I felt like I had to lie, to be honest. You know, I always try to avoid it. I've never lied on YouTube though. Never. Um, but yeah. Oh my god, should we play a freaking game of I got Clash Royale yesterday. I got Clash Royale because it looked really fun. And I might need to delete it like I deleted Genshin Impact because I am very interested in it. Too much. Too much. The IRS says you owe us 100K. Oh my god. Bro, I do not owe the IRS anything. Interesting. Oh, okay. I'm a big proponent of honesty. It doesn't make life easier, but it certainly makes it simpler. Yeah, to be honest, if I lie too much, I'm gonna forget, and then I'm gonna like catch myself in my own lie. I'm really bad at lying. Like I'm really bad at it. I feel like you could tell right away. Okay, I need to go now. Bye. This wall isn't even white. It's like I think the wall is making me look whiter. Okay. I need help, maybe.